Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Teaching kids to read, write, and develop the skills necessary to handle whatever life and the next Pokemon game throws at them is an expensive process, and as we already know, public schools are always underfunded. To counter the shortage of the funding problem, schools have to resort to some unusual and sometimes ugly ways to make money. Today, we're looking at 10 dumb things schools did to save money. Let's begin. Number 10. Nightclub. Remember the awkward and uncomfortable experiences offered by school dances? Don't be embarrassed, we know you do. God knows I remember mine. But what if schools actually made dancing fun? Well, if you happened to attend a certain school in Philadelphia about a decade ago, all you had to do was hang around after the bell rang for the education of a lifetime, when the facility transformed itself into a fully fledged nightclub. By day, the Harambee Institute of Science and Technology, a charter school in Philadelphia, quote, excelled in building students' self-worth, from kindergartners all the way to 8th graders. But when the sun set, the institute changed into an actual nightclub, which rotated the fridges into liquor cabinets, lowered a disco ball from the ceiling, and turned its cafeteria into Club de Money. What a way to make a few extra bucks, right? Harambee is a legend that just keeps on giving.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and you'll get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it. It really works.
Number 9. Cheating in test scores. If you're from the US, you know that schools with better test scores get funded more, for obvious reasons. The assumption here is that schools that do well are putting in work to get those shiny results, which might be true to an extent. And for those that seem to post below par grades, same less than enough funds for them. This worked well for a few years, but some oversmart school management went overboard with this one too. Schools decided to exploit this to their advantage by messing with the test scores. For better test scores, schools started cheating on their students in the crudest ways. In Atlanta and Baltimore, schools were caught manually erasing students' wrong answers and replacing them with correct ones. Imagine if they did that in colleges too. No one would have a bad GPA. Number 8. Renting out school property. Starting a nightclub after school timing is one thing, but this renting it out is going much further. But you would be very surprised to know that schools have a lot of in-demand assets that can be rented out to fetch a healthy dollar amount. Talk of fax machines, copiers, and parking spaces. And since schools don't run all year round, they're using these assets to get that additional dollar for their budgets. One school in Grapevine, Colleyville, Texas, for instance, made a nice additional income renting out its property. They used their office equipment to print documents for a local city government and ended up with an additional $30,000. They didn't stop at that though. Looking around, they discovered they had lots of unused parking spaces around the football stadium. They sold this off to a nearby office, netting another $87,000 side earning. With both of these incomes, the school was able to afford the salary of 2 teachers. We guess that wasn't so dumb after all. Sometimes when renting out isn't an option, selling is just as effective. One school even sold a cow for $1,700 to fund the baseball team. That doesn't seem like a bad deal, does it? Seriously though, the government needs to fund schools better. Number 7. Serving awful lunches. Let's be clear here, school lunches are never as good as the food you get at home. The school food is more like a formality, and you'll be lucky to get something that's both healthy and tasty. But some schools went further and tried to screw kids in the worst possible way by serving food that is way past its best before date, especially meat. Saving food for future use is not a bad thing, but the problem arises when the time between storage and use is just too long. And when we say long, we're not talking about a week or a month here. Think 5 or more years. Yes, schools have been found to preserve their meat for that long. This happened mainly in the Hawkins County school system in Tennessee, where students were served pork that had expired more than 5 years prior. Where do they even store the meat for 5 years? To make it a bit tastier, the cafeteria manager directed the lunchroom staff to cover it with gravy. When they were caught, the school management didn't even acknowledge the mistake. They pointed out that the expiration dates were merely recommendations rather than restrictions. Parents were also assured that the expired meat was harmless, and some schools make it mandatory for each child to have this kind of food. So, if a student turns up with their own fresh and somehow healthier food, it would be confiscated in exchange for meat from the last decade. Number 6. Student teachers. Kids seem to be maturing faster every year, so what's the harm in teachers giving them a little increased responsibility, like erasing the whiteboard, or clothing notebooks, or maybe something easier, like letting them teach the class while the teacher takes a 6-month sabbatical? Yeah, that actually happened. According to a lawsuit filed in 2016, this exact scenario occurred when a horrendously understaffed school in Detroit assigned an 8th grader to teach math classes, not just for one day as a goof, but for an entire month. He must be really good at math. After the regular math instructor, quote, left in frustration about class size and lack of support, the school could not locate any qualified substitutes. This led to appointing the highest performing 13-year-old to take over both 7th and 8th grade math, while a teacher's aide helped them with classroom management. That's right, an adult teacher was seen as less qualified than a 13-year-old student. Detroit schools are some of the most underfunded schools in the US, so these kinds of inhumane practices are often witnessed there. Number 5. Renting out kids. If you thought the property was the only thing schools rent out to raise money, then you better think again. Schools have now got as far as renting out their other more useless assets. Yeah, we're talking about the school kids. This is when, the cash crunch has hit quite hard. In this case, the school children, especially athletes, are treated as one of the school's assets and are sent out on income-generating errands for the school. And the errands here vary. But we're not talking about bake sales or barely legal car washes either. One school in Oregon has started rent-a-wrestler programs, which serve up wiry prepubescents to attend to your gardening needs. Another has posted a "will work for helmets" ad on his Facebook page, and the students didn't even get the money. It was straight wired to the school administration. At least pay up the kids, man. Number 4. Extortion. Many would agree that schools now behave like the mafia in order to survive. They charge, or should we say, demand the kids and their parents to cough up hundreds of dollars in order to keep the schools running. The Marana Unified School District in Arizona sent a note to the children's parents demanding $250 per parent in tax cred, so that's $500 for a couple. They wanted the money because they had to raise $12,500, and if the parents didn't pay within a week, they were going to start physically punishing their children, forcing them to do 10 grinders, plus 1 for every day the parents didn't give away the money, or until they die, we guess. Number 3. Ads. If you've seen advertisements on your school buildings, don't worry, you're not the only one. Times are tough everywhere in the United States. School boards, unions, and governments have been fighting for decades to ensure their budgets are balanced and to prevent more cuts. In the last few years, some schools think they've found a way to shield their schools from drastic cuts through advertising. Many believe opening the school up to ads will help save their schools in the long run. It's an alternative to endless school fundraisers and, quote, a deal with the commercial devil that some are willing to deal with. The use of advertisements in football stadiums and college arenas is not new, but now you see Walmart and Little Caesars Pizza ads on schools and buses. One school even put ads on students' lockers. Crazy, right? These ads worked brilliantly because kids are dumb and they'd buy anything to look cool. So, advertising money is easy cash, but many people think ads are not for schools. What do you think? And with that, it's now time for today's subscriber pick. Today's photo was sent to us by one of our subscribers. If you come across a photo online and want to know more details about it, just send it on over to us. Who knows? We might even feature it in a future video. Number 2. School buses. You remember those yellow buses that took you from home to school and then back again, right? For many kids, the most fun they had was in those buses. But the sad fact is, schools have a hard time operating those buses, as they actually cost a lot, and the funding for school transportation by the government is a lot less. Which is why more and more states are deciding to kill two birds with one stone and charge students for the trip. That teaches the kids that there's no such thing as a free ride. In Golden, Colorado, public schools are starting to require their students to pay a fee to sit and lick the windows of their school buses, charging a modest $150 a year to break even. But if you live in the San Diego district, the same thing costs $575. But that isn't even the worst one. Philadelphia schools proposed a price tag of $2.25 per ride, each way back in 2016. Over the course of an entire year, that adds up to over $800. Why is Philadelphia always in the front seat when it comes to screwing up the kids? Number 1. No lunch. Starting nightclubs and extorting kids' parents like mafia seems wrong on so many levels, but nothing on this list is comparable to what we have at number 1. Schools have become so heartless that they don't have any sympathy left for the innocent little kids. One school district in Kokomo, Indiana, didn't take kindly to students who owed more than $25 in lunch fees. To deal with these poor kids, the school stopped serving them food and just gave these kids cheese slices and bread. Englewood School in New Jersey went further and completely stopped serving the kids lunch, and also contacted Child Protective Services, requesting that the parents who owed $100,000 in lunch fee be investigated for neglect. Gotta make that cash somehow, right? What's the worst thing your school did to save money? Let us know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel.